All right, man, peace. So they recently caught up with George St. Pierre to ask him about the potential for a fight with Conor McGregor. Of course, they're going to talk about it, and I'm going to chime in.
Will George St. Pierre take a fight with Conor McGregor? We're about to find out because we're going to ask him. Welcome to TMD Sports. Evan here with Van and Michael J. Babcock.
What's up?
Hey, remember earlier this week we saw Dana White, the head of the UFC, out on the street, and we asked him about the rumors about a possible George St. Pierre-Conor McGregor fight. Now, this is what Dana told us earlier this week. He didn't exactly say no.
What's next for him, though? I mean, is he staying at 185, or is he going to go down?
He'll defend the belt at 185 now.
Do you guys have an opponent in mind yet?
Is Conor and him going to fight?
Well, no. Conor and him won't.
That'd be a hot fight.
Listen, I never say never, but he weighs 185 and Conor weighs 155.
Well, look, as we all know, Conor McGregor, he's had a taste of the high life with Floyd Mayweather. So here's what we know, Dana. We know that Conor right now is used to receiving high 8-figure checks. Okay? So if you can promise him a 8-figure check to fight George St. Pierre, both of them will agree to meet at about 165. I'm sure of that, or 170. I'm pretty sure that Conor will have no problem going up in weight to fight George St. Pierre, and George will have no problem coming down in weight if the money's good enough.
Conor would take that bet.
Conor would take any fight.
Okay, so he didn't say no. He kind of left the door open, right?
Right. He seems that he doesn't want to slam the door on you.
He said that Conor McGregor will take any fight, so it really kind of falls on George St. Pierre. Will you sign a contract to fight Conor McGregor? Well, George St. Pierre appeared on the Hollywood Beatdown with Tyron Woodley, and we asked him about Conor McGregor, and would you actually take a fight with Conor? And of course, his next fight that Dana White wants him to have is against Robert Whittaker.
Yeah, he's going to fight that next fight against Robert Whittaker, and then he's going to fight Conor, and then he's going to decide whether or not he's going to fight Tyron Woodley.
But after he fights Robert Whittaker, could we see GSP versus Conor in 2018? This is what GSP said. I know it's not your next fight, but down the line, somewhere in the future, do you see yourself fighting Conor McGregor?
I don't know. I weigh right now. When the night of the fight, I weigh 191 pounds. I don't know what weight Conor is, and there's a lot of interrogation, a lot of question mark, and I don't know what's going to happen next.
Well, look, let's be honest. Even if you weighed 191 pounds for your last fight, you're a professional fighter, you're a professional athlete, so you know how to get down to 170 in a healthy way, especially if you're given a long enough time period to change your nutrition in order to lose weight in a healthy manner. GSP. And you could also tell when you watch or when you listen to George St. Pierre, when you watch him speak, that he does suffer from anxiety issues. That's why it didn't surprise me when he said that he retired because, you know, the pressure was just too much. You can see that he just wants to be perfect. You can tell just by how he speaks that he's a perfectionist. And you can also tell by how he speaks that he suffers from anxiety issues. It may be something that Conor may try to play on in the build-up for their fight once their fight is announced. And I'm pretty sure that they will end up fighting because the UFC does not try to run from huge fights, and they'll do what they can to make the big fights happen. And, you know, marquee fighters like George St. Pierre and Conor McGregor, especially if they're both going to make 8 figures, they'll do what they need to do to meet at a certain catch weight to make this fight happen. I'm pretty sure that the fight is going to happen. But it will be interesting to see the type of mind games that Conor tries to play on George St. Pierre in the build-up for this fight, because you can tell that George is somebody who, you know, he does get a little tight. It doesn't really show in the fight too much, but he is a perfectionist, and people who are perfectionists tend to suffer from anxiety issues where they want everything to go exactly how they planned it out, and if anything starts to deviate from how they planned it out, you know, they may get a little frazzled. So we'll see how Conor tries to play on that, because if I see it, I'm sure that he's going to see it.
It's up to UFC. They know what is the best for the company, what everybody's gonna do, and
You're not saying no. You're not saying no.
I'm not saying no to nothing. I just don't know. You know, I'm not saying no to anything.
Of course. I mean, he's a fighter. He's only looking to the next fight. He's not looking 3 fights down, and he knows that Conor's not going to be his next fight. Even if him and Conor fight, it won't be at least for another 2 fights, because he has to fight Whittaker next, and he's not going to drop all that weight to fight Conor next. He's going to fight Whittaker next, and he's going to take his time and lose the weight right to meet Conor, most likely at 165 or 170.
I just look at the option. I'll see what's the best, you know.
But I'm pretty sure Conor will try to get it down to about 160, because if he's going to fight Nate Diaz at 170, I'm sure that he's not going to want to fight GSP at 170 because GSP is a superior tactician.
As good as a fighter I am, I cannot fight them all at the same time, right? So I'm gonna have to go one after the other. We'll see what's gonna happen who's first, all right?
Okay, so he's saying he's walking around at 190-something pounds.
Looks good though. His body fat doesn't look too high. His body is taking that weight on very, very well.
Conor McGregor fought Nate Diaz at like 170 pounds.
Right. And he probably didn't rehydrate too much higher than that because he probably had to bulk up a lot to make that weight. So you'd have a situation.
Yeah, I'm sure. Conor's only like 5'8", so I'm sure on the night of the fight, he couldn't have been much more than 173, 174. Even if he weighed in at 170, I'm sure that he didn't hydrate more than 4 or 5 pounds.
Theoretically, where Conor was walking into the octagon at around 170, 171 maybe, and you can have GSP in there at 180, 185.
Right.
That's a big difference.
Here's the thing. It sounds to me like what this is going to come down to is how much money the UFC is willing to throw at Conor.
That's all it's going to come down to. All right. That's all it's going to come down to. So I'm sure that the magic number for Conor will probably be somewhere around 35 to 40 mil, and the same with GSP.
Conor and GSP to make this happen. I think, I was saying this earlier this week, Dana White's a smart guy, and he knows that people would pay to see this super fight. I think this is going to happen in 2018.
Yeah, there's literally no fight in the UFC that you could make that would be bigger than this fight, and Dana knows how to make money. I almost feel like this is a certainty that this is going to happen.
Of course, it's a certainty. It's by far the biggest fight that the UFC is going to make in 2018, and it will happen. Especially once the UFC starts to see how many big fights are happening in boxing, because boxing has gone back to making the big fights. And in 2018, you're going to see a lot of big fights, especially in the welterweight division in boxing. You're going to see the Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder fight. And those type of fights are going to push the UFC to make the GSP and Conor McGregor fight happen.
Here's the main thing is that neither party, neither the Dana White side, we obviously haven't heard from Conor, or the George St. Pierre side was willing to say no.
Right.
Because they don't want to come back and look like a liar later on when this fight actually does happen.
And beyond that, it's not even so much about looking like a liar. It's not really customary for most of the top UFC fighters to say no to a fight because, the penchant in UFC, the stigma in UFC, their reputation is that all their fighters make the biggest fights when the fans want them to get made. So it would take a lot away from each fighter's esteem to say no, especially when, their names resonate in that sport.
There's another guy who really wants a piece of GSP, by the way.
The Joker.
Tyron Woodley. Oh. Tyron Woodley really wants to fight GSP, and on the Hollywood Beatdown, which you'll see Friday on our TMZ YouTube page, he actually gets into it with GSP, and they start...
He ain't get into nothing. His ass was intimidated by GSP. He was speaking to GSP like a fanboy. He was speaking like somebody, like a kid at Michael Jordan's basketball camp. He just wanted to shoot baskets with him. Tyron Woodley got to get his act together.
They start jawing back and forth. I don't know. You got to see this. That's going to be on the Hollywood Beatdown on the YouTube page on...
Look at that shit. He's a fan. Look at that.
On Friday. You don't get to see it now? Not right now. You'll see it on Friday, though, I swear.
But anyway, I strongly believe that GSP and Conor will fight in 2018. Most likely after GSP fights Whitaker and Conor gets his feet wet in the octagon again sometime in late December or early January. All right, man, peace. So I did a video about the UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley, and to me, his rather weak and pathetic attempt at a call-out of Conor McGregor by alleging that he was a homophobe because he used a quote-unquote gay slur by calling the opponent of one of his teammates a faggot. Well, now you're going to see the difference in how Tyron Woodley conducts himself towards Conor McGregor, as opposed to how he's going to conduct himself towards someone who is clearly one of his idols, that being George St. Pierre. Of course, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
Welcome back to TMZ Sports, where dreams come true. Van here with Michael J. Babcock.
What's up?
Yeah. We've been waiting for this video for 24 hours. Tyron Woodley came in the office today to shoot his new YouTube show, The Hollywood Beatdown with Tyron Woodley. When all of a sudden...
You can tell that Tyron Woodley just very, very badly wants to be a celebrity. Very badly. He wants to be venerated and feted in the same way as a Conor McGregor or a Floyd Mayweather, so on and so forth. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Fame is a part of accomplishment. But at the end of the day, That's just not going to happen in the UFC, not for him. As I've stated before, the UFC was not created for the veneration of the so-called black man. It was really created as an outlet for Caucasian masculinity. Now, the UFC is in the process of being heterogenized per se, having various races come in and start to stake out their own little niche in that sport. But it's still geared towards young Caucasian males, bottom line. So Tyron is never going to be as appreciated as he would like to be. But let's see what he has to say.
Sudden, George St. Pierre happened to FaceTime in. And so we thought it would be a good idea to put Tyron Woodley face-to-face with George St. Pierre and see what happens, especially because there have been rumblings that the two could fight at some point down the line. So without further ado, here is the moment. The UFC welterweight champion of the world, Tyron Woodley, the chosen one, calls out George St. Pierre and asks him straight up, are you going to fight me or are you just going to keep talking and ducking me? Take a look.
Let me say this before they start talking. Will George St. Pierre ever fight Tyron Woodley? Hopefully. But would it shock me if he never does? Wouldn't shock me not one bit. Tyron Woodley reminds me of a bevy of fighters, both in boxing and the UFC, but particularly in boxing, who were never able to get the big fight because they were more difficult. They would prove to be more difficult than the amount of money that they would generate. Now, we all know that a fight between George St. Pierre and Tyron Woodley would be a pay-per-view event. But it would be up to George St. Pierre to figure out if it would be worth it to get in the ring with a guy like a Tyron Woodley, who is an athletic freak, has muscles on top of muscles. And at George St. Pierre's age, if he wants to go through all that, when he could easily fight somebody that he pretty much knows he could beat, I believe he knows that he'll beat the shit out of Conor McGregor. And, why be on the ground wrestling with Tyron Woodley, who's probably twice as strong as Conor McGregor? I mean, and when you can get in there with Conor and, just nullify his kicks and his punches and get him on the ground and choke him out. So, I'm not going to say that he's not going to fight Tyron. I think that it's probably 50-50 at this point. But he definitely has his eyes on bigger prizes. I believe he's going to fight one more fight, and then after that, he's going to fight Conor. And then thereafter, subsequently, Tyron might get a shot, assuming that he's still champion.
You got the warm-up fight. You beat up Benjamin. I think it's time to, solidify. You're the greatest welterweight of all time. That's my goal, to be the greatest welterweight of all time. Let's get it in. Legacy-wise, for me, there's not a fight that I want more.
Well, look, you see how respectful and deferential he was towards George St. Pierre, as opposed to how he spoke about Conor. Whenever you're that deferential and you're calling out a fighter, you're already giving him the excuse to say, you know what, you're not on my level. I don't feel like fighting you right now. Tyron Woodley's supposed to say, I'm the current champion. You're nobody right now. You're just coming back. I don't know how good you are. You got in the ring with a guy who, let's be for real, is really a glorified street fighter, glorified club fighter. I've been dominating the weight class for, the last year or so since you've been gone. And, right now it's my neighborhood. You have to come and beat me to take your block back. That's what he's supposed to be. That's the energy that he's supposed to be coming at George St. Pierre with. Not, you're the greatest of all time, and I want to be there, and come on, man.
I know legacy-wise is not a fight that you want more, and you want the pay-per-view as well. That's why everybody wants to fight me.
George said, yeah, you really just want the payday. Because basically George is saying, I'm going to whoop your ass anyway.
I'm here. I'm in the division that you used to run, and I want to, show you that I'm the best in the world.
Now, listen to what this guy just said. He said, I'm in the division that you used to run, and I want to show you that I'm the best in the world. Shouldn't it be that George, since he's coming back and you're the champion, shouldn't it be that he needs to show you that he's still got it? Right? Shouldn't your message be, I'm the champion right now. I'm the big dog. You're supposed to be coming to fight me to show me that you still got it. Because I didn't see shit against Bisping. Right? That should be the sentiment one would think of somebody who has an alpha male personality and is a champion in the UFC. That's how you know that Tyron, he's not ready for George St. Pierre yet. Not mentally. I'm sure he's more than ready physically, but mentally he's not ready for him.
You're the best in the world at what you do. I'm the best in the world at what I do. We're all the best in the world.
Why can't we do the same thing and octagon at the same time?
He's basically sunning you. All right. That's why he's saying that I could fight you whenever I want. It's like a dude who knows that he could bone a chick whenever he want. because of how she looks at him or how she's always flirting with him. He's like, you know what, you know what, take a number, stand on line. I'll get to you when I get to you.
There's a line from a movie Predator when Arnold Schwarzenegger threw the knife. Stick around.
Let me rewind this back.
We do the same thing in Octagon at the same time.
There's a line from a movie Predator when Arnold Schwarzenegger threw the knife. Stick around.
Oh man, he basically sunned Tyron there. And look at Tyron's face. Tyron looked like a little kid that got let down. He thought his dad was gonna come pick him up on Friday, and his dad called him and said, "I can't make it, son." Yo, George St. Pierre says, "Stick around."
Yeah, so look, basically what GSP was saying to Tyron
Then he went and sipped his smoothie.
is, I'm down to fight you.
Wait your turn, though.
Yeah. But
Simple as that. That's all it is. Just wait your turn. You're going to be there. When I want you to be there, you'll be there. Even if I lose my next fight, you'll still want to fight me. So really, you just a hoe. That's really all George St. Pierre told Tyron Woodley.
But he says the next fight that he's going to take is against Robert Whitaker. And then he says after the Robert Whitaker fight, it's going to be between, there's a chance that he either fights Tyron Woodley or Conor McGregor. Now, I think a lot of people are saying, realistically, there's a better shot that he fights Conor McGregor because there's huge money in GSP versus Conor McGregor.
And plus, I believe that GSP knows that Conor McGregor's the easier fight. Conor McGregor has a very, very poor stamina base. He'll have to put on weight to fight GSP. And it's going to be a whole another level of skill that Conor has not seen it in the octagon before.
But I was talking to Tyron Woodley about this after the interview, and he said, look, there's a 50% chance that I fight GSP. 50-50. So here's the deal.
I agree with that. I agree that it's 50-50. But, it's going to be 50-50 after another couple of fights. It's not going to be 50-50 right now.
So what does Tyron Woodley have to do to get this fight? And the reason why I ask that question is because we all know Tyron Woodley. Mm-hmm. We see a guy bursting with personality, a dude who really could be one of the marquee stars in the UFC. But
I can answer your question.
Yeah.
Tyron Woodley, during the interview, we asked him what George St. Pierre is going to do now that he finished the fight. He beat Michael Bisping at 217. GSP says, I'm going to go on vacation. And we said, where are you going? He goes, I'm going to a nice beach. I'm going to go relax. And then Tyron Woodley said this to him. He says, I'm going to be all Shannon Briggs. I'm going to rent a boat. I'm going to find you on a beach. And I'm going to harass the hell out of you until you agree to fight me.
That's what Tyron needs to do. He should do that to every fighter in that division, man.
Going to just harass him and annoy the hell out of GSP until...
Yeah, but Shannon Briggs does that to all these fighters, and he still never gets to fight. So, that's not going to help Tyron Woodley to do that. GSP looks like the type of guy who, when he's not fighting, he's just sitting back and... he just likes to relax and totally decompress. He's not thinking about Tyron Woodley and somebody who's trying to get his blood pressure up and trying to piss him off. GSP does not seem like somebody who can be provoked or manipulated emotionally.
Until GSP agrees to take the fight.
Can we, speaking of that, first of all, can we get a little clip of Vladimir Klitschko falling into the water?
Oh, I love that. That was the classic moment when Shannon Briggs was trying to pick a fight with Vladimir Klitschko, found him on vacation while he was paddleboarding, took the speedboat out, and started shouting at him in the middle of the ocean.
And then actually drove by him and pushed him in the water. These are the types of things that Tyron Woodley should do. Actually, I'm going to have the champ call Tyron Woodley, and we're going to see what we can go with this, man.
Hey, good luck to Tyron Woodley, but I believe that he's just a little too thirsty. And whenever people see that anyone's thirsty, whether it's a man or a woman, they're going to make them wait longer. That's pretty much how it's going to go. And if they do give you what you want immediately, they're totally going to disregard you after that. Especially if Tyron Woodley begs for the fight and GSP ends up knocking him out or choking him out. It's going to take a very, very long time for Tyron to climb back from the bottom of the pile because that's exactly where Dana White is going to send him. So, if they fight, I'll be rooting for the brother. But some of the things that I've seen mentally from Tyron Woodley, particularly in the last couple of segments, shows me that he does not have a ruling class mentality or alpha male mentality. How are you the champion and you begging the next man to fight you? It's what we begging you to fight. Anyway, peace.